All right, thanks for joining me today. I wanted to kind of go over what's going on, what you're going to see in the news here. There's a class action lawsuit against Zillow. Um, First off, nobody really knows how Zillow makes their money until they become a real estate agent. And then the people that we work around and Zillow themselves start to talk about it and start to approach us to kind of jump on the bandwagon on that. It first off started off where we could pay a certain amount per month and they would promise us a 20 block of introductions to buyers that click on their website. So remember that these buyers are clicking on contact agent. It's specifically placed in a way right under the listing agent's name and telephone number and whatnot, or really not telephone number, but the name and the picture and whatnot, that it seems like you would be clicking to contact the agent and it would go to the listing agent, the person that's representing the seller, the person that would know the most about the property aside from the seller themselves. So that already was a little bit misleading. They would then collect your name, your telephone number, your email address, and use those things for retargeting, but mostly sell it, and distribute it to the people who have paid ahead of time. So when I first joined up in business with my brother, we were paying a certain amount per month. We were making connections and we were helping a few out of the 10 people that we would meet, right? So it's basically like 2 or 3 out of 10 would be serious buyers and open to doing business with us. So as you can see, if for some reason you're meeting all of these strangers as a real estate agent and you're not able to win their trust and win their business, then paying up front stops making sense, right? So you would think that those people would just stop paying up front, which they did. And what Zillow did from there was figured out that they have people who were paying up front tens of thousands of dollars per month. There's some people that are paying 20, 30, 40, $50,000 a month into Zillow. And they said, what we could do instead of you paying us, 40, 50,000 up front is we'll make the connections and then we have a brokerage. Zillow being has a brokerage set up that they could pay a referral fee. So then the referral fee, started at 25, 30%, worked its way up to 30, 35. Now it's at 40%. So now we have this huge subset of people over the last 20 years who have clicked on Zillow and had no idea how much money it was costing them. And I say it was costing them because you got to pay enough for the house that the seller can pay for the commissions for the real estate agents involved. So what I think could be pointed out in the lawsuit, I haven't looked at it, but what could be pointed out in the lawsuit also is the elevated amount that the buyer's agents would be asking for and charging when they're under this agreement with Zillow. Because if you think about it, like, I'm willing to do business with you for 3%, but if I have to give 40% of that 3% to Zillow, that would only leave me with 1.8%. And then that 1.8% has to get split between the team leader and the broker and all of that. So I might end up only getting like 0.8 or 0.9% of the purchase price at that point. So we do have teams that have relationships with Zillow that increase their fees to 3.5, 4.5. I've seen 6% asked for from the buyer's agents in those scenarios. So it does make the housing prices go up a little bit because of the real estate agents themselves. They still have to provide great service, right? Because just because you clicked on Zillow doesn't mean you have to do business with them. So now these people they're providing great service and getting a fraction of what they're used to getting. And we've had a lot of teams find success in this, but in the most part, what you're dealing with is brand new agents being hired and brought onto teams where they have really good training to get started on how to speak to people and how to treat them and how to organize their business so that it works well with getting Zillow leads and converting as many as possible for their own business. But at the end of the day, you're working with a brand new agent or an agent that doesn't necessarily need to be in the business. They look at it like anything I make as a real estate agent is just extra. It's not really the ideal situation to walk into not knowing the current situation of your realtor that you're doing business with. Me in particular, I prefer working with a realtor that they do this for a living. They're having conversations every day with buyers and sellers. They have a really good finger on the pulse on both sides of the aisle. A lot of times these teams are very buyer representative heavy, so they do know what buyers want. They're kind of learning what sellers want by where they're getting offers accepted and not accepted. So that's better than nothing. But a lot of these times they're part-time agents and such. So just so that you know, Zillow is not the only company that's out there doing this. I think pretty much every other lead distribution company is doing this. I could actually show you receipts from my text message of companies that you and me and any other real estate agent might not even know the name of that company. Like might not recognize them as a leader in the industry. Those smaller outfits are the ones that are asking for the realtors like myself to pay them, $1,200 all the way up to $12,000 to get started. And then they would basically say, give us 30, 35, 40% of the commissions on the back end. Don't pay us along the way, just pay the startup fee. They use terms like invest in yourself and you got to put skin in the game for us to build your business and something of those sorts. When it comes to the VA loan, there is a company that's out there that if you search information on the VA loan, they show up several times on page one, starting off at the top. They pay a lot of money to be there. When you do an application for a mortgage with that company, they have a bullpen of realtors around the United States, and there's actually over 50,000 realtors on the waiting list to be one of those realtors in the bullpen that get these referrals. But it's the same thing. RESPA, RESPA, is supposed to protect the consumer from lenders and realtors and title companies and escrow companies and vendors of any sort to be giving each other kickbacks. This to me seems like, on the surface, a very huge violation of that trust in the consumer realm, because you wouldn't think that doing your application with your credit union or your banking institution or the banking institution that says that they, specialize in VA mortgages, all of these companies have relationships with realtors, and they've established a loophole in the RESPA, process that they can do referral fees from broker to broker when it comes to the real estate agent side. But when the lending institution is the one that's making the lead, and then maybe even Zillow is making the lead, like neither one of those are representing themselves as real estate agent or real estate salespersons or real estate brokers. But they definitely are treating your data that way. And then they're selling your data for huge amounts of money. I mean, if you're just wondering how this would play out, if I joined a team that got leads from these places like Zillow, Realtor.com, Veterans United, Navy Federal, USAA, all of these trusted names in the industry. Redfin is even selling leads now this way, where I sign on to that team because the team leader has the relationship with that company. So now if I help you find and buy a $800,000 property, my business, I need to make a certain amount. So in that certain amount, I have to now say an $800,000 property at 3% is $24,000, right? So we'll just do this with the calculator. If I pay the lead source, whatever company it was, in this lawsuit named is Zillow, we're going to times this by 0.6. So out of the $24,000 that you're paying for the house, that is now being from the seller, taken from the seller's proceeds and given to the brokerage that is representing that the license of the person representing you is hanging on, that $24,000 check is written to the brokerage, but only $14,400 stays with the brokerage. In this sense, in this case, $9,600 goes to the referral company, whether it's, Zillow or whatever else, right? So now there's $14,400. Now I'm the one that helped you in this hypothetical scenario, and I have a team leader that has the relationship with the company. So that guy is not going to be willing to do it for free, right? He's hiring me because he doesn't have the capacity to handle the business flow and the volume of business that it requires for them to have a good relationship with this company. So it's kind of a catch-22 where he has to keep growing, or she has to keep growing their business, meaning hiring more agents, hiring more agents, hiring more agents, right? And then out of that $24,000, that 14,400 that is now for me and the team leader to split, that is standard half and half. So I would, out of $24,000, my business would collect 7,200. And just to give you an idea, my personal business costs me somewhere around $5,000 a month. Not all the fees are monthly. A lot of them are annual fees. But if I split it up, it's about $60,000 a year in automatic overhead that isn't even eligible for me to then go and make money for my family, right? So then I have to take my household bills, and I'm just being transparent here. My household bills have to get paid, right? And my business bills have to get paid. And the only way that I get paid is when you close on your purchase, or when you hire me as a seller and close on your sale. So 7,200 isn't enough. So now I have to, if I were to make this choice, which I'm not going to, but if I were to make the choice to join one of these teams, I have to figure that maybe I should have to close about 4 of these per month, just to break even on my making sure that my business and my household bills are paid. Anything above and beyond that could be invested or kept for a rainy day fund. Now, the really gross part is that you will then get treated that way, right? So if you've ever clicked on Zillow and the person was real hot and heavy with you for the first couple of days, but then because you weren't quite ready to take that next step, they put you onto a like follow-up kind of schedule, whether that was every 3 days or 7 days or 10 days or 20 days. Those follow-up schedules are also dictated by those team leaders, and they've kind of figured out what's the right cadence for certain, circumstances. But in this sense, they don't follow up because they need to strike while the iron's hot. They need to get these buyers and sellers committed to doing business with them or not. And then the last part of all of this is I wanted to go ahead and give you guys a quick heads up on like what kind of headspace and attitude you've got to take in order to be a successful buyer. I've been getting a lot of people saying that they're not in a rush, that they can take their time, that there's nothing really pressing them to have to move. And I've got to tell you that those same clients are in my book of business and continuously looking and putting in not in a rush kind of offers, and they're getting beat out by the people that are in a rush. So if you're going to take a not in a rush and not on a certain timeline approach, it's okay. However, shopping in with that attitude in the market is not going to be your best way forward, because every single house that you like is probably going to be one that other people like as well, right? Whether the price is attractive, or the condition of the home is attractive, or the location of the home is attractive, or all three of those. If you double up or triple up in those, you're really going to have to be, acting as if you're in a rush and being willing to pay the most, because you could put yourself into any seller's shoes and say, if I have an offer in this hand for 800, an offer in this hand for 825, I'm going to want to take the 825 offer. And if the 800 guy gives me certain conditions that are more pleasant than the 825, I can simply go to the 825 guy and say, hey, would you be willing to do the 825 with these better conditions that this other guy says? And if that 825 guy says yes, it's not over yet, right? I go back to the 800 guy and I say, hey, we love your conditions. We just don't love your price. We have somebody at 825 that's willing to do the same kind of approach. We're going to need an 850 from you. in order for your buyer to end up winning. So putting in that like not so in a rush, not so much in a hurry um, offer sometimes ends up getting that price, giving the listing agent the ability to give that price a bump, right? What you can do as a consumer, if you're not in a hurry and you're not in a rush, is just don't put in any offers, but also be very transparent with your agent that you're not putting in any offers, and that you're not even close to putting in offers, because then we can treat you accordingly. And I don't mean mistreat you, because that is not my intent at all. What I mean is that if you're in the looky-loo stage, if you're still in the consideration stage, if you still have something coming up that you have to get past in order for you to feel comfortable or confident or even qualified to make that next purchase, we're going to want to be aware of those things. And also, we understand that you still might want to see something in person. You might see something come on the market. Like, for instance, I had one of my not in a rush buyers texted me a property at 650, 3 bedrooms in Chula Vista, and the closest comparable sale in the area, or relevant sale in the area, priced this house towards 800. I would be very surprised if it sold for less than $775,000. But they put it on the market for $650,000, and then they scheduled 6 to 8 hours of open houses per day for the first 7 days. So that they kind of showed their hand there. They underpriced it. They want all of the attention. And what's really unfortunate about that one too, and I had a discussion with my boy Alex, that we agreed that pricing it at 650 is not fair to the consumer, and it's not fair to the real estate agents either. Because if you think about it like this, at $650,000, and the going price should be somewhere between 750 and 825, let's call it. At 650,000, if they have 20 offers written, that means that they probably had 100 showings, and in those 100 showings, you have at least 100 sets of buyers. And some buyers bring their spouses and their kids to these events. So let's just average it out at 2.5 people per 100. So that's 250 people. But also, those 100 sets of buyers have a professional that is responsible for representing them. So those 100 people also alerted their 100 agents. So I'm alerted, and we're not even seeing the property because we know that he's not in a hurry. He maxes out at 650. He's not going to be able to compete to win this one. But at the end of the day, that's a lot of people that have spent a lot of time and effort and energy, and even got their hopes up that maybe, just maybe, they could afford something so nice at this discounted price. And it makes them ignore everything else that's listed at 750, 725 that they might be able to spring on, because they think that there's this deal at 650. So I hope all of these points help with what's going on right now. The overview feeling of the market right now is that buyers are reluctant if they're at all going to be pressed or squeezed for their budgets. So there's not a whole lot of buyers out there that will be out there when the interest rates drop. So if you are ready to act like the hare, more like the tortoise, and less like the tortoise, if you're ready to act like you're in a hurry, if you're ready to get something in your name and take claim to your property, now is a great time, because the other buyers are just kind of looking around and getting their hopes up on deals that aren't really deals. And I hope this really helps you guys make your next decision in a good way. All right, see you later. Bye.